So let's take a look at feminism as a pure theory for theory methods, and I'll obviously put feminisms there because we're going to look at several. So feminism is a macro-structural conflict modern theory. It's large scale and it talks about how individuals are controlled by patriarchal society. Male dominance is the key here, patriarchy, and obviously the role of feminism is trying to break down and remove patriarchy. Feminism is a social movement. It emerged in the 1960s and 70s, which was the second wave. The first wave of feminism would have been the suffragist movement in the 1900s. That then led to the second wave, which was women's liberation in the 60s and 70s. In the 90s, we moved into our third wave, which was kind of the girl power phase. And then lastly, the fourth wave, where we currently are, this is hashtag activism. And obviously this is quite prominent, particularly with campaigns like the Me Too campaign right now. All of the institutions in society are instruments of exclusion and limitation, particularly from feminism, of all these waves of feminism. And one of the things is that gender stereotypes, identities, and the patriarchal ideology are all reinforced by institutions, particularly the idea that women contribute less to society and the world than men. One of the big things we talk about a lot is that sociology is male stream, focusing on the achievements of men. So the five types of feminism that we're going to focus on. So liberal feminism is convinced about trying to achieve equality in society, and actually all men and women should be equal is their main argument. The means of achieving this is through gradual change. So not rash revolution, but gaining equality over time through legal changes and looking for opportunities to promote gender equality. Oakley talked about the difference between sex and gender, particularly gender is a cultural construct. And she talked about masculine and feminine and how the ideas are transmitted through each generation through gender role socialization. Essentially, gender is a social construct. So gender roles vary according to time and place. Attitudes towards men and women change between countries, and therefore it shows that this liberal feminist idea can take place, that feminism and gender is not fixed and obviously it can change. Radical feminisms are the kind of slightly more stricter, more stronger branch of feminism, the more, as the name suggests, the more radical, more extreme. And obviously, again, Firestone looks at the roots of women's oppression lying in biology and their role of having children, and therefore women become dependent on men because of childbirth and raising families. Radical feminists believe that all men oppress all women and all men benefit from patriarchy, especially women's unpaid domestic labour and their sexual services. Radical feminists argue that relationships between men and women are rife with political and sexual politics. The key things they campaign for is social change. So women would benefit if relationships were transformed. They would promote separatism between men and women living separately. Consciousness raising is making women aware of their inequality through shared experiences to show they're not alone. And political lesbianism. So the idea that non-oppressive sexuality is one where there's no men involved. So they recommend lesbianism to restore power balances within relationships. Marxist feminists, as traditional Marxists do, they reject liberal and radical views of feminism. So they say that women's subordination is a result of capitalism, just like Marxism. So although men benefit from the work of women, capitalism is the biggest beneficiary of women's role, particularly in terms of economic work, housework, and positions in the home. Ultimately, women are subordinate to men. So capitalism sees women as a cheap source of labour, a reserve army of labour. They reproduce the labour force for free, and they absorb the anger of men, particularly the work of Annesley and the takers of shit. Difference feminism says that all types of women have different issues, and obviously the main issue they have with other types of feminism is that they assume all women share the same experience. Difference feminism highlights women are not homogenous, they're not the same group, they all have a different issue, and that can be racism, homophobia, class, inequality, capitalism. So they kind of break women's movements down into individual groups to help individual women and individual groups of women tackle the problem they face. This obviously puts them in conflict with other types of feminism which are trying to unite women under one cause. Difference feminism is breaking women down into smaller groups. And last but not least, we've got dual systems feminism, which is basically it's radical plus Marxist feminist. So it's saying that women are oppressed by patriarchal capitalism, the double burden of capitalism and patriarchy oppressing women in both ways. And then we have post-structural feminism, last but not least, which is kind of the idea of looking at discords of conversation, and the idea that, you know, feminism and gender and the role of women is a sort of discord, it's a social construct, and the way we discuss women creates the image of it. So Butler argues that post-structural offers advantages for feminism because it gives women the ability to deconstruct the discourses about gender, and obviously it changes and can change the discord. So, as I say, there we have the key feminist debates: liberal, radical, Marxist difference, dual systems, and post-structural. I hope this has helped, and thanks for watching.